Hello and welcome to this episode of Waddington's World of Computer. In this episode, we want to take a look at how to create a newsletter, and in that you can kind of see there's a lot of things going on here. You can see that we have a header at the top, or we have MC News up here at the top. We are going to have a date that shows up here. We're going to have our town and a cost for a paper. We got images added in here. We have things in columns, and if I kind of scroll down here a little bit more, you can see, I have a page number down here at the bottom for page 1, and then you'll notice we get into page 2, we have another page number there. So we want to take a look at how to do this and create a newsletter using Microsoft Word. So to get started, what I'm going to ask you to do is we're going to open up a blank Word document. To open up a blank Word document, just if you go to your Windows key and then go ahead and type in Word, open up your blank Word document. Since I already have my Word document open here for MC News, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go up here to the top and I'm just going to do my new, or I could do a Control-N. So I'm going to click on that to get a new document here. Now that I have my new document and I'm started here, what I want to do first is I need to get some text. In order to get some text, what I'm going to do is just type in equals RAND and then parenthesis 2, comma 35. Sounds good. So what I have here is this is going to actually randomly generate 2 paragraphs, and there's going to be 35 sentences in each of those paragraphs. It'll just give us some text so that we can actually go through this process without worrying about creating all those new news articles and everything else. But typically you would have all these newsletters and news articles that you would want to put into that newsletter. So anyway, now we're going to just do that, and that's going to generate, again, 2 paragraphs here and 35 sentences long in each of those paragraphs. Now that we've done that, the thing you're going to notice here is we want to clean this up a little bit, because right now my paragraphs are not indented. You can see that. My right hand side is jagged. I kind of like to clean that up as well. So let's select everything. To select everything, Control-A. After you have everything selected, first thing we want to do is, let's say we want to even things up on both the right and left margins. To do that, you would click on what? Think about this from before, and you've done the ruler review activity, and hopefully remember that if you wanted to do that, you would click on Justify. So Justify, which is this item right here, will allow us to even things on both the right and left margins of our document. So we're going to go ahead and click on Justify. Makes it looking a little bit cleaner there. And then the other one that we want to do is we want to indent the paragraphs. In order to indent those paragraphs, think about that for a second. Indent the paragraph. I need to use an indent marker. Which one will make sense? Well, my first line indent marker, which is this triangle right here. If I put my pointer on that first line indent marker and I click and I drag that over to a 1/2 inch, you'll see that my paragraphs are both going to be indented to a 1/2 inch. Okay, so there we go. Looking good. And now let's take this a little bit further, because if you ever think about a newsletter, sometimes what you're going to notice is they put newsletters in columns, or a newspaper might be done the same way. So if we wanted to put part of this document into columns, what we could do is we could actually take, let's say we'll take this first paragraph and put it into 2 columns, and we're going to leave our second paragraph alone, so it's just 1 column there. So if we just click 3 times on a word here in this first paragraph, when we click 3 times, it's going to select that first paragraph. Once you have that first paragraph selected, we can go to which ribbon, thinking in terms of if I want to put this into columns. If we go up here to the top and we start thinking about these ribbons, well, hopefully page layout kind of sits in your mind that we want to add columns. That would make sense. That would be in page layout. So let's click on page layout, and sure enough, there's columns. And we're going to go ahead and click on columns, and then once you click on columns, you can go down there and let's put this into 2 columns. And when I put that into 2 columns, you'll see that that goes into 2 columns. Now, my invisibles are not on right now. If I want to see exactly what's happening here, as far as all my spaces, tabs, all those invisible characters, now that I just put that first section into columns and my second section is not, you'll notice that my second section is still the way it was earlier. So if I want to see what's happening here a little bit, I'm going to go back to my home ribbon, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the Show Hide Invisibles, or my Show Hide button. And when I click on that Show Hide button, you'll notice down here at the bottom of that first section that we highlighted, that first paragraph, Word put a section break in here when we put that into 2 columns. The reason for that section break is because that first section of our document had to be in columns and our second section was not, and because of that it put a section break in there. In our case, it's just there, just to be aware of that. It's not a big deal. We can turn our invisibles off again. So I'm going to go ahead and hide the invisibles. Continuing, now that we have our document made as far as our text goes, and we have our columns set up and we justified our text, the next thing I want to take a look at is adding a header. To add a header, we're going to go up here above this or the main body of the document. Above that is your white area here, this top margin. Now this is where your header is. If you double click in that area, what will happen is that'll take you up into the top part of your document and put you in the area which is known as a header. So now that we're in the header, we're going to go ahead and go to our home ribbon, and we're going to select Center Text, and then we're going to just go ahead and type in MC News, capital M, capital C, and then capital N, lowercase EWS. And then after we type in MC News, go ahead and press the Enter key. That'll take us to the second line of our header. Click on Align Text Left, and that'll move our insertion point over here to the left-hand side. And we're going to put 3 pieces of information in the second line of our header. We're going to have the date, the town, and the cost of this newsletter. Alright, so to add a date, we could actually type the date in, that's fine, but there's other ways we can actually add a date, so I want to take a look at that. If we go to our Insert ribbon, in your Insert ribbon, if we go over to the right-hand side here, you'll see an icon that looks like this. Yours might be a little bit different as far as it might actually say Insert Date and Time next to it, depending on your resolution of your computer. But you can see this icon here, and if I put my mouse over top of it, you'll see it says Insert Date and Time. So go ahead and click on that, and then you have different date and time formats. We're going to go ahead and select the third one down here, which in my case says June 6, 2017, and you're going to select that, and then after you select that, the thing I'll point out to you down here, you see this Update Automatically? If I would check this box here, what would happen is this document would automatically, every time I would open up this document, the date would change to whatever the computer date is. Now sometimes that makes sense. If you worked for a billing company and you were printing out bills and they had time date sensitive material and you wanted to have that date show up, the exact date that was being printed out, you may want to actually have that update automatically. In our case, we really don't need to turn that on. If you wanted to turn it on, you could, but I'm going to turn it off, and now I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now we have our date in there. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and press the Tab key. Now when you press the Tab key, you'll notice that your insertion point went all the way over here to the center of our header. Why? Why is our insertion point now at the center underneath of MC News? Well, thinking about that for a little bit, if you look up top here at your ruler, you'll notice on your ruler you have a center tab that is on the ruler. We didn't place that center tab there, but Microsoft realizes that there's a good chance you want to put something in the center of your header. So what they did was they automatically put a center tab in our header. Now, with that center tab being in the middle of our header at the top, we could have, for our MC News, instead of clicking on Center Text, we could have just pressed the Tab key one time, and it would have put our MC News right in the middle, and that would have been acceptable in this particular case. Either way, and now that we've done this, we can go ahead and type in our town, Mannheim, comma, space PA. After we get Mannheim, comma, space PA in there, go ahead and press the Tab key again, Now, why did our insertion point move all the way over to 6.5 inches? And again, I can, if I show my invisibles here, just to make sure you understand, there are tabs showing up here. There's that arrow. Okay, this is a tab that was pressed. This is a tab that was pressed. Now, why did my insertion point move all the way over here? Well, again, if you look up at the ruler, sure enough, here on top of my right indent marker, you'll see there is a right tab. And that right tab, it looks like a backwards L. That right tab was also put there by Microsoft, and the reason they did that is they figured there's a good chance that you may want to put something in the top right hand corner there, like a page number maybe, or maybe you wanted to have your name, whatever it might be that you want to put in that right area of your header. They realized there's a good chance you want to do that. So in our case, we're going to actually put our cost of our newspaper here at this point, our newsletter. So I'm going to hide my invisibles again. And here, at this point, we're going to go ahead and type 50 and then put a cent sign. And go ahead and look around on your keyboard and you'll realize, guess what, Mr. Waddington? There's no cent symbol there. You're right, there's not a cent symbol there. So if you want a cent symbol, what we want to do is go back to our insert ribbon. And when you go to your insert ribbon, you'll notice over on the right hand side, next to where we did our insert date and time, you'll see there's this item here that says symbol. And insert symbol allows us to add symbols that are not on our keyboard. So go ahead and click on this pop down here. And then what we want to do is just go down here. Now I've used some different symbols, so my most recently used symbols are showing up here. But I can go down here to more symbols. And once I do that, you'll notice this brings up this dialog box that says symbols. Now, in this particular case, it's on Wingdings because that's where I was last. But if we just go, hopefully, and most likely for you guys, you're on normal text. But if you're not, if you're looking for symbols that are not normal text, for example, Wingdings is a good place to go. You can get a telephone. There's different kinds of symbols that you can actually get in here. But in our case, I'm just going to go back to normal text. And we want a cent sign. Now I can start scrolling down through here to try and find that cent symbol. And it does take some time to find the symbols that you're actually looking for. Now, since I've actually found the cent symbol before, if I go down here and I click on recently used symbols, you'll see it keeps track of some of the recently used symbols that you may have used. And if you select that, it'll actually give me the character code here. And if you type in 20B5 right there, if you type in that character code, again 20B5, if you type that in, it'll get you to that cent sign. And then once you have that cent sign selected, and that's, again, it's in here if I keep scrolling down through, but it should show up for you. And trying to find it here quickly if I can. A lot of symbols to look through, and I may have passed it. So, but it is in there, and you can find it by scrolling through here. And some of you may have done that already and scrolled through and actually found a cent symbol. And there are different ones in here. But again, I'm just going to go ahead and, since I'm not finding it here real quick, I'm just going to go ahead and select that. Again, it's 20B5 if you type that in for your character code. Once you have that cent symbol selected, then just go ahead and hit insert. And you'll notice if you look at your document, it just put that cent symbol in there next to my 50. So I have 50 cents. So go ahead and click close. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back. We're going to change our MC News at the top. Let's go ahead and highlight the MC News. Now, if you click 3 times on that real quick, it'll highlight that whole entire first line. And now that we have that first line selected, I'm going to go ahead and change the font size here to 24. Let's make it bold. Go ahead and pick a font color, your choice what font color you want to use. I'll just go with a red here for now. And then I'm going to go to my second line of my header. I'm going to click 3 times on my second line of my header. And once I have that second line of the header selected, I'm going to actually put a border around this. So I'm going to go to my home ribbon. In my home ribbon, we have our borders. And you may have wondered, why would I have borders in a Word document? Well, here's a good example of why you may want to have those. So if I go to click on this right now, I could actually go down here and do outside border. And when I do that, you can see that puts a border or a box around that second line of my header, which starts making it look more like a newsletter and more professional and polished. So at this point, we have that. If you wanted, you could also take that second line of your header, click 3 times on one of the words or something in that second line of the header, and you could also, to the left of where you have your borders, you could go to your shading, and you could click on the shading here, and you could pick a light shading color if you wanted to put a shading color in there to just give that a little bit more of an accent at the top. Okay? So there we go, we got our header taken care of. Now we're going to leave the header. You'll notice the body of our document has been kind of grayed out. So we're going to go from the header back down here to the body of our document. Just go ahead and double click on the body of the document. After you double click on the body of the document, you'll see your header kind of grayed out there. That's okay. The colors that you used and everything else would actually show up when you would print that out, as long as you select color for your printer properties. So in the body of our document now, what we want to start looking at is, by the way, if you scroll down, I should also point this out, your header is going to show up on your next page as well, unless we specified otherwise, but the header is going to show up on each of your pages. So now, continuing, we're going to come back to our document. I want to talk a little bit about a couple other things at this point. We do want to add pictures. That's one thing that we want to take a look at, adding pictures to our document. But before we actually even add those pictures, one of the other things that I want to talk about is, you know, sometimes you find yourself using the same words over and over again when you're typing up a report. Well, one of the things that can be very helpful for you is if you use the thesaurus. Well, in a classroom, I remember growing up as a student and being in class, and the teacher would give me a thesaurus to use periodically when you were writing, so that you didn't get stuck using the same words over and over again. It was nice to be able to find words that had the same meaning, called synonyms. So what we can do to do that a lot easier today than when I was a kid growing up with a thesaurus is we can simply, if we're in a Word document, if you have a word, let's say we're using the word help over and over again, let's double click on the word help. When you double click on the word help, it's going to highlight that word. Now if we right click on that word help, what's going to happen is it's going to give us a pop down list here, and lo and behold, if you look at this, one of the items in here is synonyms. This comes in very helpful. Instead of having a thesaurus there, I already have some other possible words that I might want to use here instead of the word help. So if I was using the word help over and over in my document, I could then sit there and decide, hey, I want to use something else here. So now I can look at other words there, and I got to think about the sentence here. It says, video provides a powerful way to help you prove your point. Well, maybe instead of help, I wanted to use assistant. Well, assistance wouldn't make sense, but assist might be a good word to use. But I can go over here and select assistance, and when I do that, now I have videos provide a powerful way to assistance you prove your point. Well, that doesn't make any sense. We're going to have to change this, reread it, and this has to be assist. So videos provide a powerful way to assist, and I would say you, in proving your point. So the thesaurus, again, can be very helpful when we are actually trying to find another word if we're using the same words over and over again. So don't forget about that. It can be very helpful when you're trying to look for other synonyms for that word that you've been using over and over again. Alright, so now that we've covered that, the next thing that we're going to do is go ahead and click after your second sentence there. And after you click after your second sentence, we're going to add a picture now to our document. To add a picture to this document, what you want to do is go to your insert ribbon. So that makes sense. We're going to go to insert ribbon because we want to insert a picture. And then where we're going to get this picture from, we're going to use online pictures at this point. So we're going to go ahead and click on this online picture. And then after you click on your online picture, Then here you can see insert pictures, and we're going to do a Bing search, and we're going to go ahead and click here. And then once you click in there, we're going to just go ahead and type in, I don't know, one of your favorite animals. So maybe I'll type in moose, and go ahead and type in your favorite animal. And after you do that, just go ahead and press enter. And when you do that, it'll come up with a whole bunch of images there that you can kind of start looking at. Now, just a little side note, remember, and you can see this down here, it's a good idea about making sure that you give credit to wherever those pictures came from in a bibliography, because the pictures are not yours. You want to make sure you're giving credit to those pictures. And if you were ever using it for a document that you were going to sell or anything else like that, you would actually have to pay royalties a lot of times for using those pictures. So obviously this newsletter is not something we're going to sell, but make sure that you would always give credit for pictures that you use maybe in an educational setting for a presentation that you're giving or a report that you're submitting. Alright, so in this case, what we're going to do is kind of go down here, find a picture that you want to use, and then you can go ahead and put that in. I don't know, I'll just take a picture of this moose in the field. And I'm going to go ahead and select that there, and I'm going to hit insert. And now I have my picture of this moose here in the field. And what I can do now is I can resize this image if I want a little bit. So I'm going to go to one of these corner handles. Now if I'm going to resize an image, I always like using the corner handles, because if you use a side handle, it will get squished and it will not be proportional. So if you always use a corner handle, it will make it proportional when you resize it. So remember that. It's usually a good idea to use the corner handles instead of one of the side handles, unless you want to make your moose or whatever animal you have look like he's skinny or fat. You could use one of those other side handles. Now that I resized this image here a little bit, you can see I have this gap in my text here. Well, I really don't want to see that gap. So what I want to do is, right here are some layout options for this image. And I can click on the layout options. And when I click on the layout options there, I can go in here, and you can see I have some different layout options that I can do with this image. I can make the text wrap around it square. That sounds like a winner. So I'm going to go ahead and use that one. We're going to go with square. And when I do that, you'll notice I'm going to go ahead and click on this layout option button again, and I'll make that kind of disappear. My text just wrapped around my image there, and if I start dragging my image around, you can see I can drag this image around any place on my document, and the text is going to wrap around it in a square fashion. So maybe I want this moose to be up here in the top of my first column, something like this. Okay? And I may want to resize it a little bit. So there's my first image I've added here. Now what I'm going to do is add in a second image. We're going to go over here to the second column. We're going to go over here someplace. I'll just click after the sentence here, theme. And I'm going to go ahead and add another image. So I'm going to go to insert, and I'm going to go online pictures, and I'll type another cow in here. I'll type in another animal. I'll just type in cow, and I'm going to do a search there. Now this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a transparent image, and if you look here under type, this is kind of nice about Bing. When you do a search here in Microsoft's products, as well, you can do this in PowerPoint, you can do it in even Excel or any of their things that have the ability to add pictures to it. So if you go to type here, we can actually decide, well, do I want it to be a photograph, clip art, line drawing, or transparent. Transparent's kind of nice if you want something that has nothing around the image, and I'll show you that here in a second. So let's go ahead with transparent this time. And what you want to do is try to find an image here that has transparent around it, and all these do. But if I select one of these images, I'm going to select this guy here, and I'm going to go ahead and hit insert. And there's my cow that I just put in here. Now, go to your wrapping again, your layout options, and if we click on your layout options, right now again it's in line with text, which basically that means it's going to move with the text. And maybe if you're making a children's storybook or something where you said the cow, instead of writing the word cow out, you might have the and then a picture of the cow. So what we're going to do here is, instead of doing in line with text, we're going to move down here, and again we had our square, and then continuing down You have some other things here like tight. Let's go ahead and take a look at tight. There's through. They're a little bit different. Tight, I'm going to go ahead and go with tight right now. And you can see the words just started taking on the shape of my cow. Now what I'm going to do is resize my cow a little bit here. And you can see now when I move my cow around, the text is going to wrap around the outside of my cow. Now, through, the difference there, usually with through, your text is going to go through, like reading straight across. Well, that didn't look like it made a big difference here in this particular case. But you can kind of play around with those and you see what happens. But when you lay a document out, make sure that it's going to read or be pleasant for the reader. You don't want to make it so it becomes one of those things that becomes awkward for the person who's trying to read that document. So I'm going to go ahead and take this image and I'm just going to kind of put it between my columns here for right now and leave it there. Now one of the other things that you might consider doing with your images, once you've put these images into the document, you may consider wanting to add some kind of formatting to those images. So what you could do is in your format ribbon, there's a lot of things you can do in here. You have over here, as far as adjust goes, you have corrections. If you go in here, you can pick different color corrections. Okay, you have color right below that. You could pick different colors. Maybe I wanted to, you know, I don't know, a red cow somehow. If I want to go in here and make it like strawberry, you know, you get your strawberry milk from a red cow. No, actually, that's not true. But anyway, you can go in there. You can recolor things if you wanted to recolor your cow. Then below that, you'll see there are artistic effects. And if you click on artistic effects, these are kind of neat too. If you wanted to go over any of those, you can see my cow just kind of changed there. It's called glass. Here's another one that's, you know, pastel smooth. And you can see some of those effects as you put your mouse over those different images. And you could decide, well, maybe I want to go with this glass. That looks kind of cool, just to have a little bit different effect to that image. So again, you have the ability to do that. The other thing is you have right here is this little button here. You can always reset your picture, which is kind of nice. So if I hit reset there, my picture is back to what it was before. Okay, so there's some different features in here you can kind of play around with. And in addition to that, you'll see you have different picture styles that you can do, and you can put frames around it. You can do different things there as well. And then you have different borders you could put around. You have picture effects, and you can go in here. Maybe I wanted to put a shadow behind my cow, and if I put a shadow behind my cow, you can kind of see there's a shadow showing up there. And if I even want to get more options, again, don't ever forget that you can go down here, like I got shadow options. That's going to open up my pane over here on the right hand side and my format pane for my picture, and I can go in here, and if I go to shadow, and then you could sit there and say, oh, I want to adjust that shadow. I can change the size of the shadow. You can see there the size of the shadow changes, and you can play around with some of those things as well. Alright, but it gives a little bit of depth like it's popping off the page. I'll go ahead and leave shadow on there for now. But there are different effects that you can actually go into. I'm going to go ahead and close that pane. But again, here's our picture effects here, and you can see different things that you can kind of explore. Alright, picture layout. Again, where it's going to be kind of laid out in your document, there's some different kinds of things here if you're doing a flow chart or something like that, things that you can consider. And here's our text wrapping. Again, this is one of those things with text wrapping. I have a tendency to, instead of going in here, I just tend to use this little button right next to it. It's just a little bit quicker. You can send things front and back. Talk a little bit about those kinds of things with you in the Castle activity about sending things forward and back. Cropping images. If all of a sudden there was, you know, maybe I didn't want this entire moose. I have a whole bunch of different things in here. I'm just really kind of glancing over a lot of these. Rotate image might be something you want to consider sometimes. Maybe you want to flip it. You know, you can actually flip things. So you can play around with those as well. Cropping allows you to crop the image. You can actually set the width and height of the image as well. But like cropping an image, I'll show you real quick on this top moose here. If I click on that moose and I go to crop, and then basically I could go to these black handles and I can resize this. So maybe I just have the moose's head in this image here, and then I hit crop again, and then it's going to crop it down to just that part of the image. Alright, Last thing, the other thing that you want to do to this document, let's take a look at adding a page number. To add a page number, you want to go down to the bottom here and click in the footer. So go ahead and double click in the footer. When you double click in the footer, you'll notice that you're in the footer section. And we're going to just go up here to our design ribbon at the top, and then just go to where it says page number. And you can go ahead and select bottom of page and then decide which page number you want to use. Maybe I want to use this accent 1 bar. And again, you can pick whichever one, or accent 2 bar. I'll go with this one. And then you'll see there it says page 1. And the nice thing about this is page 2 says page 2. Again, this is something that's really helpful, because back when I was in school, I remember having to type in all my page numbers, and that was not something that was very pleasant. So there are a lot of things that we can be thankful about with the word processors today versus the word processors when I was a kid. All right, to get back in your document, just again double click in the document there, the main body of the document. And once you've done that, we've completed this activity, and hopefully you have a better understanding of how you would go about creating a newsletter. At this point, we're going to go ahead and save this. So let's go up to our file, go to save. Now save as, since we're saving it the first time. And then go ahead and hit browse and navigate to your computer folder. And once you get to your computer folder, documents 2016, 2017 in my case here, and then computer, and then for the name of this thing, we're going to call this MC News. And then hit save. Alright, that's it. Feel free to play around with that and explore a little bit more with that activity. And I hope that has been helpful. Take care.